International Journal of Health Policy and Management. Quality and speed are our culture and the keys to our success. Welcome to the audio summary section of the International Journal of Health Policy and Management.
Scientific medicine has made enormous strides in identifying the individual determinants of health, offering insights into pathology, physiology, and increasingly the genome. At the same time, the social sciences have shed light on the social determinants of health, identifying and explaining differences in the health of populations and groups within those populations. More recently, political scientists have joined the fray, looking at the distribution of power in society, and this power may be visible, it may be invisible, or it may be actively concealed. And this has led them to focus their attention on the global corporations that often exert such a powerful influence on health. We know a great deal about some of these corporations. The release under court order of internal documents from the tobacco industry now allows us to understand how they operate, distorting the scientific evidence and denying the harms caused by their products. But it's not just them. It's now increasingly clear that the alcohol and the sugar-sweetened beverages industries behave in exactly the same way. One way in which corporations have been able to become so powerful has been through trade liberalisation. They've lobbied hard for trade agreements that reduce or eliminate what they call non-tariff barriers to trade, but what we call safeguards for health. In another paper in this journal, Ron Labonte and colleagues looked in detail at the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership. Now, this is one of the most controversial examples of such agreements because of its scale and the depth with which that it goes into. They pointed to a number of aspects that could undermine the health of the people and the countries concerned. Now, we agree with all of the points they make, but we've been particularly concerned at one element of the Trans-Pacific Partnership and a feature of many other trade agreements, and this is the investor-state dispute settlement process. This is when multinational corporations disagree with an action taken by a national government and seek to challenge it, particularly when it's on grounds of environmental protection or health. One recent notorious example was when the government of Uruguay sought to introduce graphic warnings on its cigarette packages, and it was challenged as this was seen as a restraint on the future profits of the tobacco industry. Now, Uruguay won, but it was only after a long and very expensive battle, and with the financial assistance of the philanthropist Michael Bloomberg. Few small countries would have the resources to take on the tobacco giants like that. At the same time that the Trans-Pacific Partnership was being negotiated, discussions were continuing across the Atlantic on what is now termed the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. But this time it was different. In the face of huge pressure from civil society, the European Union, which was negotiating on behalf of the European member states, was insisting on a number of safeguards. One was to exempt the health care sector from competition clauses, recognising that there are many sources of market failure in healthcare. Another was retaining the right to set quality standards for healthcare, making sure that these could not be challenged as non-tariff barriers to trade. But the most important was that any dispute that arose should not be dealt with in a secret trade tribunal, but should be dealt with by judges meeting in public, with all of the evidence being published. And these judges should be free from any conflict of interest. They should be selected from a panel. This is not the case with most trade dispute settlement panels, where the arbitrators are selected by the parties concerned. The dispute process should be open to everyone with an interest in what is being discussed, and this would include the advocates for health, environmental protection and human rights. Again, radically different from the situation that exists at present. Now, of course, the question is whether other countries will accept these proposals, and it increasingly seems that they will not. But what it does do is that it tells us that the European Union is putting the interests of its people above those of the multinational corporations, even if it means that the TTIP will never be signed. Now, at the same time, the United Kingdom has decided to leave the European Union. If it succeeds in doing so, and given the clear lack of understanding of European institutions by the ministers concerned, we cannot assume that this will actually happen. But if it does, then it is very likely that any future trade deals that it agrees will have these protections. Given the controversy over international trade, maybe we should be grateful to the British government for undertaking such an experiment with its people. However, it would surely have been preferable that it sought fully informed consent from them before doing so. I'm afraid it seems unlikely, given the total disregard for the truth by those supporting leaving the EU, that any patient information sheet that they could provide would be accepted by an ethics committee.